You're 16 years old, alone in the garage after school, cutting your very first part on a small desktop machine. The little kit cost you $515. 20 years later, you sell the machine shop you built. The sale clears at $853,000. In between, the climb starts low and slow. You start at just $15 an hour. You load raw blanks by hand and sweep chips off the floor. 299,500 machinists work across America. They cut the parts inside your car, a rocket, and a surgeon's tray. They hold sizes too small to see with the eye. And they crash machines worth more than a house. This is every level of a machinist's career and what it costs to climb. If you like breakdowns of how careers actually progress, like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Level 1. The Garage Hobbyist. You are not paid a single cent here. You only spend. The little desktop machine kit ran you $515, and a real step up to a hobby router starts at around $1,800. You bolt a cheap trim router on where a spindle should go, and you keep a cordless drill nearby for the holes it cannot reach. You draw a phone stand in FreeCAD, generate a toolpath in the CAM, clamp a scrap of aluminum, and zero the tool to the corner. You watch a video on feeds and speeds twice, then a third time. The spindle winds high and thin above the bench, and the fine aluminum dust smells faintly sweet. Then you finally run it. You push the feed rate far too fast. The end mill snaps clean, spins loose, and pings off the pegboard behind you. You slow the feed, dial the speed in by the sound alone, and the next pass peels a clean silver curl. Then the garage goes quiet again. You clamp the stock a little loose one time, it walks mid-cut, and the whole part comes out scrap. So you learn to indicate the stock, snug it down, and check it with a pair of calipers before you ever hit start. Quinn Dunkey, who machines online as Blondie Hacks, taught herself this very same way, and she warns you that a lathe is actively trying to murder you at all times. You quietly believe her by the second week. You deburr the sharp edge by hand, run your thumb along it, and hold up a real object cut from a solid block. You post the photo online. Someone asks if you can make them one too. You slowly stop breaking end mills. The part is not perfect, but it is yours, and it actually fits. The promotion here is simple. You want to get paid for this. Level 2. The Button Pusher. Your first real job on a shop floor pays $15 an hour, and it is all yours. You clock in before the sun, grab the run sheet off the rack, and read the day's part number. You load a raw blank into the yellow vertical mill, and clamp it down in the vise. You reach for the control and thumb the green button. You press cycle start, and the tool changer thunks around through its carousel overhead. The machine you are standing in front of costs the shop over $250,000. You make $15 an hour. Do the math and keep your hands clear. You unload the finished part, gauge a diameter with calipers, deburr the edge, and set it in the tray. You sweep the warm blue chips, top up the coolant, and do it again. The tray fills up by lunch, one part at a time. The federal machine guarding rule, on the book since the early 70s, is the reason the door has to be shut before the spindle will ever spin. Ethan Pabin signed on as one of the first apprentices at the Mull Group in Warwood, West Virginia, on a registered apprenticeship backed by the U.S. Department of Labor, and he put it plainly, "We need more people in a trade." Andres Barajas started at a manufacturer spinning chips and sweeping the same floors you sweep, exactly the way you are starting now. Then, one afternoon, the run drifts. You gauge a diameter creeping slowly toward the very top of tolerance. You flag it fast, before the machine quietly cuts 200 scrap parts. The lead walks over, nods once, and writes your name on the good run. Another day you forget to top up the coolant on a long cycle. The tool smokes, the finish comes out rough, and you eat the lecture standing up at the bench. You never forget it again. Slowly you stop flinching every time the tool changer fires. It is loud, your feet ache by noon, and you are quietly proud you made something real that actually ships. Your first paycheck clears on a Friday. The door to setup is the next one, and it only opens if they trust you alone. Level 3. The Setup Machinist. Now at this rung, the median pay is $56,150 a year, and you have earned every single dollar of it. You don't press start on someone else's setup anymore. You are the one who builds the setup from nothing. A fresh print lands on the bench, dense with tolerance callouts. and you read it like a second language you finally speak. You pick the work holding for the job. You load each cutting tool into the carousel by hand. You set the work offsets and the tool length offsets one careful number at a time. You indicate the vice true with a dial indicator, tapping the jaw 1,000th at a time until the needle finally stops moving. You find the edge of the part with an edge finder. You zero the part to a clean origin. You prove out the very first block of code on the control, single line by single line. The credential that proves you can do all of this is real and earned. The National Institute for Metalworking Skills runs 52 separate certifications, and the entry test costs only $80. You study, and you pass it on your own. Then comes the setup that very nearly ends the whole day. You are tired. You are rushing to make the shift. You fat finger a single tool length offset, putting one small decimal in the wrong place. You reach up, and you hit cycle start. The spindle drives the tool straight down into the steel vise at full rapid speed. The crash is a sound you can feel deep in your teeth. And then everything in the shop stops at once. You just stand there with a bent tool, a scarred vise, and a whole shop gone dead quiet around you. Nobody in the shop yells at you for it. You quietly reset the broken offset. Then you re-indicate the work from scratch. You prove it out single block this time, slow. Every line, no shortcuts left. The reworked first article comes off the machine clean, and you carry it over to the surface plate. You measure every dimension on it with a micrometer. It passes inspection cleanly. On the very first try, Darren Baker climbed this same rung himself from Swiss machinist to production supervisor over a span of about 13 long years, and he says the work is worth it because we are not just making parts, we are helping people build a life. You slowly start to hear it that way too. You stop fearing the machine in front of you. You still respect the rapid, but you argue with the part now instead of flinching away from it. You run 2 machines at once, then 3. The chatter in a cut tells you what to change before the gauge does. The door to programming opens the day your setup runs all afternoon alone. You stop turning the handles, and you start writing the code that turns them for you every day. Level 4. The programmer. The median salary now jumps to $69,880 a year. This is steady, salaried, sit-down office money now. And the very top of the trade clears $99,060. You don't stand at the machine much anymore at all. You sit at a quiet workstation down the hall instead. You model the whole part first inside the CAM software. You build the toolpaths on the screen before a single chip ever flies. You rough the block out fast, then you finish it clean. You pick the right carbide inserts for every single cut. And you write the setup sheet for whoever actually runs it. The post-processor quietly spits the finished code out for you. In a recent survey of real working shops, one program held about 29% of all the professional seats. And you are one of those programmers now. You program a straightforward 4-axis job for the floor first. Then comes your very first 3+2 work up next. That job runs on a full 5-axis machine downstairs. Then, feeling good, you get a little cocky. You skip the simulation entirely to save yourself some time. It is only a fixture you have run many times before. The toolpath plunges straight down into the steel clamp. The spinning tool explodes into fragments on hard contact. You buy a brand new fixture out of the week's savings. You simulate every single job religiously after that day. You slowly build a tool library you completely trust. And the next new part basically programs itself in one afternoon. You trim the cycle time down minute by minute. The job comes off the machine faster than you quoted it. You dial the whole careful process in over weeks. Then you set it to run lights out overnight alone. You shut the shop door behind you and go home. You come back in early the very next morning. The parts tray is full of finished good parts. Parts you personally never once watched get made. Adam Booth machines as a Bohm 79 out of Pensacola, Florida. He moved from a lifetime of manual work to modern software. And he says the lesson plainly and straight. Strong manual fundamentals make you a far better machinist. You program the way you once ran the handles, by feel, but faster. You stop standing at the machine for good now. The parts get made whether you are in the room or not. The next rung up is not simply a better program. It is finally owning the machine that runs it, and that machine is the whole next rung. Level 5. The Aerospace Specialist. A commercial aircraft has 2 to 3 million parts. Somebody has to make each one perfectly. And up here, that somebody is you. You are paid $32 to $55 an hour to make just one of them right. Everything up here is cleaner, quieter, and slower than the floors below. You run a Swiss-type lathe, feeding bar stock through a guide bushing, while the cutting tool stays put. John Groth, who runs a Swiss shop making military firing pins, will tell you the strange part. On a Swiss machine, the stock moves, not the tool, which flips how you set every offset on the control. You machine titanium and inconel all day long. You hold 5/10,000ths of an inch, a tolerance you simply cannot see with the naked eye. The work runs under the Aerospace quality standard and under the export control they call ITAR. Every part you touch has to stay traceable. You cut the first article, then inspect every single characteristic on a coordinate measuring machine and log it into a full report. You group the bar stock by a few tenths before you ever load it, so the whole run holds size, instead of drifting across the shift. Then one day you find the one that almost got away. A safety-critical pin measures a hair past the limit on the very last check. You catch it on the measuring machine before it ever ships. You pull the whole lot, recut it, and remeasure every dimension again. You assemble the inspection package, hand it to the customer, and it clears with 0 non-conformances. A high-end Swiss cell can run up to about $400,000, and the shop trusts you to feed it. You stop trusting your eye over the gauge. The oil smell never really leaves your hands anymore. The part you can barely see is the one keeping a jet up in the sky. The paper is half the job now, and you sign your name to it. The next door is not a harder part. It is the whole shop. Level 6. The shop owner. Now you buy your own machines, and you keep every bit of the programming in-house. A used mill runs about $45,000, and it earns that money back fast. The operator you hire for the floor still makes $15 an hour, and he runs the machine that you own. You take home about $269,000 a year, and you work more hours than any of them. First, you quote the job yourself. Then you win the purchase order, buy the raw material, program the part, set it up, and run it lights out overnight. Then you inspect the part, you ship it out, you send the invoice, and then you chase that payment for weeks. You run the whole floor off scheduling software and a long wall of fixture plates. John Saunders did exactly this. He bought a benchtop mill in a small New York apartment back in 2007. Then he moved out to Zanesville, Ohio, and built his own machine works, funded at first by his own machining channel. You build the fixtures. You make the payroll. Then one slow month, a big customer goes quiet on you. You keep the lights-out runs going for the smaller accounts, and you make the payroll anyway. The used mill pays for itself, cutting parts all night with nobody left in the building. So you finally stop running the parts yourself. The whole floor runs itself now. The scary part isn't a crash anymore. The scary part is a phone that never rings. But the doors stay open, the wire clears, and the shop is finally yours. There is one rung left, and almost nobody ever reaches it. Level 7. The master. This is the rung almost nobody reaches. Most machinists never see it. Titan Gilroy walked out of prison, took a machining job at $9 an hour, and built his own manufacturing company in Rocklin, California. He filled a floor with rows of yellow-taped CNC machines, 5-axis mills, Swiss lathes, rows of programming stations, cutting parts for the biggest names in aerospace. At the peak, one customer paid $1 million a month. It felt permanent. Then $4 million of work was canceled in a single day. Most shops die right there. He rebuilt. Today, the free academy he started has more than 750,000 registered students learning the trade for nothing. That is the move at the top. The shop stops being the point, and the trade itself becomes the thing you build, and then the thing you hand down. You machine titanium to tolerances a customer cannot confirm without a lab. You program it, cut it, inspect it, and put the whole thing on camera for the class. You teach. The chips come off the titanium like blue confetti and land in the tray. You stop counting the machines. The $9 an hour is 20 years behind you, and the kid you just hired is starting where you started. The man who had nothing proved the trade could rebuild a life. Not just his life. Anyone's who is willing to climb. You started with a desktop machine on a garage bench that cost $515. It still sits on a shelf in your office, right where you glance at it from the desk. Below it, through the window, a floor of machines runs all night with the lights off, cutting parts nobody is watching, and every one of them is yours. Here is the thing nobody tells you at the start. The top of this ladder was never a bigger paycheck. A machinist and the man who owns his shop can stand on the same concrete floor. One is making $15 an hour, one is worth 7 figures, and the only difference between them is who owns the machines. The trade everyone said the robots would take is starving for people. Deloitte and the Manufacturing Institute found a need for as many as 3.8 million manufacturing jobs by 2033, and 1.9 million of them could go unfilled, which means the kid you just hired, the one making $15 an hour, loading blanks and sweeping chips, has more security than he knows. He is cutting his first real part right now, hunched over the vise. It will not be perfect, but it will be his, and it will fit. The wine you fought at 16 is a hum you sleep through now. The climb cost you a decade of cold mornings alone in an empty shop. You would spend every one of them the same way again. You do not run the handles anymore, and you do not have to. You walk the floor once, slow, touch nothing, and lock the heavy door behind you. The desktop mill is on the shelf, the floor below it runs itself till sunrise, and the keys are in your pocket. The shop is yours now, free and clear,